Right. That Rules Committee will come to order, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. Tonight represents the first of two meetings regarding our highway transportation programs. Tonight we will hear testimony from Chairman Bill Schuster and Ranking Member Peter DeFazio on bipartisan work that their committee has done to reauthorize and reform our highway system, transit, and highway safety programs, which are set to expire this month. We will then move tomorrow to consider amendment in the Rules Committee print, which contains the text of H.R. 3765 as modified, as well as amendments to non-transportation related projects and provisions that are in the text of the Senate amendment to H.R. 22, which contains a Senate Drive Act. I want to thank both of you for taking time to be here. I know this is not the most fun you really ever want to have on a Monday evening, but it's essential. Both of you represent important people, not only back home in Pennsylvania and Oregon, but also the content of your party and the processes that need to go on. Both of you come to this table as exceptional members of Congress, and we're delighted to see you. Quite honestly, people love to see Bill Schuster up here, and he's really our #1 guest. Yeah, that's right, because you do great things. But I want to thank both of you. Before I recognize you, I want to move, if I can, to our ranking member. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here today and for bringing forward this bill. I think it's not necessarily the bill that I would have written, but quite frankly, anything I would write would not get through this place. So it's probably good. It's probably good for the sake of the passage of this that it represents some of the compromises that it does. I just want to say for the record, I don't love everything about this bill. I'm sorry to see that we're continuing to use G fees as a pay-for on unrelated transportation bill. G fees should be used to protect taxpayers from mortgage losses, not as an offset on the highway bill. And in fact, Section 3110 of this year's budget resolution prohibited the use of guaranteed fees as an offset. So it's unclear to me as to why we're reversing course and using guarantee fees as to fund part of the transportation bill. I also have concerns about the use of private debt collection as an offset to the bill. I think instead of raising money, it will likely result that the federal government will lose revenue. We've seen this movie before. Between 2006 and 2009, the IRS used private debt collection agencies, and instead of raising revenue, the federal government took a $4.4 million loss. But having said all of that, I think this represents a major step forward. I just will just say one final thing, and while I'm all for opening up this process, I hope that a lot of the amendments that are offered don't prevail, because I think this bill right now represents a very delicate compromise, and if you start adding things to it, I'm going to give you one example. This whole move to put bigger and heavier trucks on our road, which I think is a threat to the public safety, makes absolutely no sense to me. Drivers don't want that. People who drive on the road don't want to see bigger and heavier trucks. A small group who head up the trucking industry does, but this is a bad idea. And if you start adding those kinds of things on, then I think the bill becomes controversial, and then we start losing votes instead of winning votes. So again, I want to thank you both for your effort here, and I appreciate it. And right now, it looks like it's something that I could support, but I hope it doesn't get all screwed up on the House floor. With that, I yield back.
Thank you very much. I'd like to, before we get to these gentlemen, say two things. Number one, Louise just looked at my coat and said, horse. And I said, yes, that's a horse, a Texas horse. She said, no. Every horse comes from Kentucky.
Every good horse.
Oh, every good horse comes from
That's not American
Kentucky.
Pharaoh?
So I revised and extended and said a few good horses come from Texas also. So.
I thought you were celebrating Bluegrass State.
Yes. Second thing I'd like to talk about is one of the favorite sons of Texas, the gentleman from Texas, Martin Frost, who sat on this committee as a member, including the ranking member, the gentleman Martin Frost from the 24th District of Texas. And Mr. Frost, I want to welcome you back to the committee. and let you know that we're delighted that you're here, and it's good to see you. You look great. Don't you wish you could say the same about me? Maybe not. Well, we're delighted that you're here, and Martin and I are good friends. Gentlemen, anything you have in writing will be entered in the record. Without objection, we'll make that happen. But if you'll please remember that our great and awesome stenographer always needs help with anything that you'll leave to help her along in the tribunal of the finals. Mr. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought maybe your horse was American Pharaoh, since he's the first horse to ever win the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup, the Grand Slam of horse races. I thought maybe you were honoring him today. And I also want to say hello to our former colleague, Mr. Frost, who has roots in Altoona, Pennsylvania. So Hugh Halpern will be happy to hear that, too, because Hugh's an Altoona boy. But again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Slaughter, for having us here today for this opportunity. The chairman said about not being maybe the funnest, maybe a lot of fun being here tonight, but I can tell you it's extremely exciting for me because about 3 years ago, when I became the chairman of the Transportation Committee, this was one of my highest priorities, to get a long-term bill, a multi-year bill to improve our nation's roads and bridges and transit system. Today's legislation, the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Reform Act, or STRR, take a little bit of liberty, the STAR Act, represents our committee's efforts to meet that goal. Chairman Graves, the ranking member, and I worked diligently with our counterparts, Ranking Member DeFazio and Norton, to put together this bipartisan bill. And to Mr. McGovern's point, this bill is balanced. And I'm going to work hard with Mr. DeFazio to make sure it stays balanced as we move it onto the floor this week and into a conference. 2 weeks ago, the committee was able to unanimously approve the STAR Act. And so here we are today. This bill is absolutely critical to the American economy. Transportation, and in particular our surface transportation system, has a direct impact on the day-to-day quality of life. It affects how we get to work, how we get to school, how we move product around, how we get the products from the fields to the markets. So it allows our country to be competitive. It's fundamental. That is fundamental to the STAR Act that we've passed here. To help put this legislation together, our committee traveled across communities across this country and talked to transportation and business leaders about the need for this bill. We heard that our states and our communities all have a variety of needs, and that certainty over multiple years is necessary to address those needs. The STAR Act is a multi-year bill that provides that certainty for states and local governments. This bill helps improve our nation's infrastructure and maintains a strong commitment to safety, but it also provides important reforms that will help us to continue the job more effectively. Key provisions in this bill, we will refocus our transportation programs on national priorities. I think that's extremely important. I think over the years, we've let that slip and get away from it, so this is a refocus on national priorities. We're going to promote innovation to make our surface transportation system and programs work better, provide greater flexibility for states and local governments to address their needs, and streamline the federal bureaucracy, accelerate project delivery, and facilitate the flow of freight and commerce in this country, which, again, I think that comes back to the first point of refocusing our transportation programs on national priorities, and that is to move freight. And we have the coming crush of freight is 20 years from now, it's going to just about double, and then 20 years after that, it'll double again. We've really got to start acting now, because what we do here in the next 5 to 10 years is going to determine if we're going to have a clogged up system or if we're going to be able to move those products and people efficiently around this country, and move it to the ports to get it in and out of this country is going to be critical for our national well-being, our economic well-being. The STAR Act continues the role of the federal government. Providing a strong national transportation system enables our country to remain competitive and helps ensure our quality of life. So again, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and as I said, I've been waiting for 3 years for this, so here we go. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fazio, welcome. We're delighted that you're here. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity and for moving this bill forward to the floor. This will, of course, be the first long-term six-year transportation bill in 10 years. It is long overdue. We have been doing perpetual short-term extensions. Doesn't allow the states to plan meaningful longer-term projects because of the budgetary uncertainty that's created. So we're not maximizing the investment nor maximizing the potential job impacts of larger projects. No one's going to say it's perfect, but it is a bipartisan product. which meant some give and take on both sides. What should be, nothing should be, actually partisan about the movement of goods and people efficiently and making the country more competitive in the international economy. You know, Eisenhower, well, let's start back with George Washington, canals and some initial road building, and then Lincoln, the transcontinental railway, Eisenhower, the highway program, Ronald Reagan, who included transit for the first time because he said we shouldn't ignore our urban areas into the Highway Trust Fund. So this has a long and bipartisan tradition of investment. You know, we need to make some major new programs and investments. One will be the freight program, and that will go to major programs of national and regional significance to help facilitate commerce and the movement of goods. It has a strengthened Buy America requirements, which will provide jobs here at home, moving from 60 to 70%. We reform, there are a number of reforms in here, and one in particular reforms workforce retraining programs, which I think will help get more people engaged in transportation projects and transportation skills that they need to work on these projects. We are going to do more funding for highway grade crossings, motor carrier safety grants, higher standards for transit safety, encourages states to provide mental health and substance abuse treatment to DUI offenders to deal with the issue of drunk driving and the deaths that result. More information to emergency responders on rail. We have a rail section in this bill that's very important. Comprehensive oil spill response plans will be required of the railroads. We don't have those now. And we will mandate something that the trolls at OMB eliminated. We're going to put in the thermal blankets, which everybody agreed were critical in the oil tank cars, and that was supported by industry and safety experts. Don't know why they took it out, but you know, often don't know why OMB does anything. Finally, it does have $115 million that will enable states to experiment with innovative ways to look at the future of funding transportation, moving toward vehicle miles traveled or other ways of raising funds as we move to more and more efficient vehicles and some that will not fuel at all. It's not perfect, but it's bipartisan, it's compromise. This will move us forward to hopefully a quick conference with the Senate so we can beat the deadline and get this all done before the temporary authorization expires. And with that, I'll submit my floor remarks to the record. Thank you.
Mr. Bosdale, thank you very much. I'm going to defer my question, go to the gentleman from Oklahoma. The gentleman, chairman, is recognized.
Thank you. I want to congratulate both of you, frankly, for the bill and working in such a bipartisan fashion, getting us a product. I haven't had a chance to go through all of it, let alone the 200 and some odd amendments that you seem to be attracting a great deal of interest, but we'll get through it, and I'm sure he and Dale will be supportive. I do have a couple of questions that I know your committee has wrestled with and others, and that's the pay-fors. If you can, tell us how much of a 6-year program we actually pay for with the money that's available, and just what are your thoughts going forward? Because I know we would all like to have a full 6-year bill fully funded.
It's funded for 3 years, but we have provisions in there that allow for, and Paul Ryan, up until last week or so, was working very hard to try to come up with some sort of tax reform, working with the Senate. So we have it for 3 years, and if we get the funding from whatever source in the next 3 weeks, 3 months, or within the next 3 years, that can flow right into the bill and continue on. We won't have to come back and do a rewrite 3 years from now. So that's my hope, that we can figure out a way to find that additional 3 years of funding. And I think that again, with some tax reform, repatriation, and other tax reforms that I've talked with Chairman Ryan, Speaker Ryan now with, I think that's still out there and still possible, and that's what my hope is.
I'd agree with the chairman. It's critical that we have that reopener clause in there, which would say any additional revenues dedicated to the trust fund will be spent under the formulas and policy of this bill. Absolutely critical. I would hope that we don't just fund a 6-year bill ultimately at these levels, but we find even more we can very productively make the investments. We've got a $84 billion backlog to bring transit up to a state of good repair. Got 140,000 bridges on the national system that need substantial repair or replacement, and 40% of the mileage in the national highway system is at a rate of it's deteriorated to the point where you have to dig up the roadbed and not just resurfacing. That's bad news, but the good news is that would create one heck of a lot of jobs if we could make those kind of investments. So I'm hoping that we do find some revenues and we do at least meet these levels, hopefully more.
Well, I appreciate your efforts. Just one other question, and this may drag you deeper into the details of a small part, but it's important to me. Can you quickly describe what the provisions you have are with respect for Indian roads funding Native American?
For the most part, it's status quo what we've had there, but I do think some ports, when we look at the staff, there's more money to different portions of those programs.
But no substantive changes to the formulas or distributions?
No.
Thank you.
But there are more dollars going to some of those tribal systems.
There were amendments in committee that would have, and we don't know how, because the authors couldn't describe it, have changed the apportionment under the formula, and you will be reviewing those here, and would urge you to take a close look at whether or not those should go forward, because it's obviously something that's very sensitive and not widely understood. We are underinvesting. We have a very high rate of pedestrian deaths, vehicle fatalities. The school buses, particularly on larger reservations in the West, are traversing many tens of miles on a daily basis of poorly maintained roads that are substandard, and it needs more investment.
You certainly are correct on that. I've been on many of those reservations in the Dakotas and further west and Southwest, and this is the federal responsibility. You have governments that don't have the ability to tax, so they don't have the ability themselves to raise the revenue, and boy, it is third world infrastructure if you're at a place like Pine Ridge or what have you, which really materially, makes it impossible for them to join the 21st century and for them to have very much in the way of opportunity. So I very much appreciate the extra money and your attention on that. With that, yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Gentlewoman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you. It's a really comfort just to even have a transportation highway bill. I've got a couple of things that really disappoint me. One is the PosiTrack system. Came in here in 1988, 86. There was an awful crash in Maryland after that. We started on PosiTrack then. It was in the last century, for goodness sake. And now you've just given them 3 more years. I don't, after the crashes we've had in the Northeast Corridor, it's really unsupportable to me we do that, particularly as we're starting to carry more and more of the Bracken oil, and it's a problem for us. That, and plus, in New York State, over the Erie Canal, we've got 100-year-old one-lane bridges that fire trucks can't even use. We've really, I know we're in this perpetual unauthorized war here, well, about 15 years, is it, somewhere there? Though we can't afford high-speed rail or anything like other people have, but safety issues, I think, are a whole other thing. And if we're allowing larger trucks on the road, with some of these amendments are pretty scary. On roads that can't take it now. I don't mean to be cranky up here, but because I've wanted this done for a very long time. Peter, I know, Peter and I have our own caucus. It's called the Cantankerous Caucus, with Slaughter and DeFazio and others too numerous to mention. But I heard that when I said I didn't mean to be cantankerous. I'm delighted that we have a bill. But we need to do so much more than perpetual war. We really need to take care of ourselves. We can't get our goods and services, those goods to where we need to go. Up where I live, we can't even get people where they need to go. And so we have a long way. So we got a 6-year bill here paid for the first 3. Is that, sum it up?
At the
That's
moment,
kind of euphemistic here, isn't it?
yes. At the moment, we're using the Senate pay-fors for approximately 3 years as a placeholder.
Right.
That may or may not be the final resolution. I mean,
You hope for something better?
I am.
I am too. We need to fund this thing for 6 years, and I think there's still hope out there for some sort of corporate tax reform, that repatriation,
Right.
stop these inversions, and a number of other
Absolutely.
issues out there.
I think that's very important, critically important. I'm glad you're thinking about those. Well, I certainly support whatever you can to build this infrastructure back up, because it's dangerous. I mean, literally, with this one fire truck situation, they have to go around many miles to just even get to the district that they're responsible for protecting, and can't do it. And it doesn't make sense to me that we don't prioritize more the safety. But I will say I'm very disappointed on the positive track. I've been at it for decades now. And
Oh, Madam Ranking Member, if I could, on positive train control, I have, strongly supported, the mandate to move. The problem is, as originally written, first off, there was a compromise in dealing with the Senate, and they moved the timeline back. I mean, it's an extraordinary effort. It's essentially it's a new technology. We have had some primitive train control on Amtrak for quite some time. This is a much more sophisticated technology. There have been in very difficult intersections dealing with the Federal Communications Commission, who has to approve every pole sighting, and the poles, there's tens of thousands of poles that have to be sited for this, for transmission. There have been other issues, and what we're doing here with the extension is we know now that we're on a path for it to happen. I will admit that among the railroads, some have put in more investment, more effort than others, but this will level the playing field. Everybody has to have a 3-year plan with measurable benchmarks, and they have to be completely mechanically, physically installed at the end of 3 years. Whether they will all be operable at that point is up to basically the Federal Railroad Administration, who puts them through a very extensive testing compatibility issue, because some people run their engines on other people's tracks, et cetera. So, but it's 3 years with measurable bench lines all along the way, benchmarks, and this is going to happen, and I think this is the best way we could move forward. If we just stuck with the current deadline, nobody would meet it except for part of Amtrak.
well, this sure isn't the America we grew up in. Yeah. When we took care of the country and moved it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Woodall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
As you know, I have the great pleasure of serving on the Transportation Committee. It's the first authorizing committee I'd ever served on, and it has been a real pleasure to work with both of you all and both of your teams on this. To your point, Ranking Member, you mentioned the underinvestment, the literally hundreds of thousands of projects that are out there. Could you speak a little bit about what is in the bill that enables us to get more bang for every dollar that we are spending? I come from one of those suburban districts that has fiscal conservatives who say, I don't want to give another penny to anything, and it has those folks on the environmental end of the spectrum that say, I don't want to damage anything, and both those folks want to be able to get to work every day and want the fire truck to be able to get to their house when time comes. We don't see many bipartisan pieces of legislation come out. If I ask the chairman this question, folks might just think it was, I'm asking the conservative Republican from Pennsylvania. So I wanted to ask the less conservative gentleman from Oregon what some of those highlights are, where we can tell folks not only are we going to provide more money, we're helping folks to get more bang out of every dollar that we're spending.
Well, there's a number of provisions. There is some additional environmental streamlining in this bill, and it also, I think, will help move along some of the past environmental streamlining that has yet to be fully implemented administratively. Secondly, we are, short-circuiting some of the, shall we say, we're giving more authority to the states to not just follow the federal. There's a thing called the Green Book, okay? Everybody's got to build into the Green Book, right? Well, sometimes there are perfectly safe and very efficient, but less expensive ways to accomplish the same goals in terms of we want to deal with this congestion point and move traffic through more quickly. And we're going to allow the states to deviate from that federally mandated Green Book and all the lines, line after line after line that's in there. We are going to increase the control that goes directly to local, avoiding the state bureaucracy. So I think there are a number of provisions that the gentleman would find are very helpful in terms of getting the money on the ground at the local level and spending it more quickly, more efficiently. Time is money when it comes to these projects, and the longer they hang out there, or the longer they get delayed, the more expensive they become. And if it's a replacement or repair project, the more expensive the repairs become.
Madam Chairman, we have a lot of bills about this size that show up in this committee, and the more you read, the less you like what's in here. These gentlemen have produced a bill. The more you read, the more you're going to like it. The more you get into the details, the more success you're going to see coming out of the T&I committee, and I'm pleased to be able to serve with both of you. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Woodall. That's a rousing endorsement, Mr. Chairman.
But the gentleman from Georgia's fingerprints are on this somewhat too, so I'm glad he was very helpful in helping us move this forward.
Thank you. Mr. McGovern.
Thank you. Again, well, let me just, about the pay-fors. You said that there may be different pay-fors before this is all done. Does that mean that the current pay-fors might be subject to change in the bill? I mean, I mentioned the G fees before and some of the concerns that have been raised about that.
They're going to be, if you're making them the amendments in order, there are going to be some debates on the floor about that. I hope they don't change. I hope we're able to maintain the same pay-fors with the Senate to get us into conference, to get us a 3-year bill. But what I'm talking about is looking beyond that and of course, the Ways and Means Committee is the committee that has the jurisdiction to figure the revenues out. And I know that Paul Ryan has been working very hard to try to figure out with the Senate how we move forward on that and get some more dollars into this.
And let me just say, did you want to add something, Mr.?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not been entertained, but I have put forward numerous proposals on the tradition of user fees since the Eisenhower administration. Other members have put forward, and there's a bipartisan proposal from Pascrell and Ribble, I believe. Renacci, sorry. So there are a number of proposals out there. I think some of them are going to be proposed as amendments. But whether, this committee in its wisdom is going to allow those, I don't know. But for my part, I really think it's very difficult to get to the levels of funding I think we need without user fees. And I think the American people are actually much more receptive than some people who are holding levers here believe they are. In fact, as I understand it, 8 totally red states in the last 2 years have raised their gas tax, and nobody's been recalled or lost their election. The American people get it. They're tired of the potholes, they're tired of the detours, they're tired of the congestion, and they'd also like to see a more robust economy. But, at the moment, that's not being entertained. But, we do have that critical provision in the bill. If the bill moves forward in this form, and if it came out of conference in this form, it does allow for additional revenues later. And I know there's controversy around some of the pay-fors, and they may well get changed in conference. I don't know. But we don't get to work on that part.
No, and I appreciate that. And just, one other thing, I mentioned this push that's going on here for bigger and heavier trucks. And, I remind my colleagues that in MAP 21, we asked the DOT to do a study. And DOT concluded that not enough good data exists, and therefore there should be no changes in truck size and weights until we have a better idea. And they were pretty explicit about that. And loading this bill up with all kinds of exemptions or raising the truck size and truck weight, I think is, to do so without a lot of thought behind what the implications are, I think would be a really big mistake, because we get bigger trucks, truck crashes kill nearly 4,000 people in this country a year, mostly people, passengers in automobiles. I've interviewed countless truck drivers who do not want to be driving bigger and heavier trucks. I've heard the trucking industry say that bigger and heavier trucks means fewer trucks on the road. Well, that's never been the case. Every time we raise truck size and truck weight, more trucks go on the road. I'm not against, I'm a big supporter, I'm not against the trucking industry. I'm just, we do things around here sometimes without fully understanding what the safety implications are. And I'm predicting that there'll be a lot of amendments made in order, and probably will be, out of necessity, to get through them all. There'll be very short debate times. And so there will not be a lot of in-depth debate on any of these amendments. I'm just saying I hope there's a bipartisan effort on the committee to try to say no to some of these more controversial amendments that I think could do great harm to the driving public. And there's several amendments that are being proposed that would do that. I think it's a bad idea. It's not in your bill, but I'm just afraid that it might be in before it's all said and done. And and the idea that somehow that we're going to bigger trucks are going to on our interstate highway means that they won't be driving on our side roads defies logic, given the fact that a lot of the deliveries that have to be made are not right off the highway. So we'll just be expanding the danger. So anyway, I just say that for the record because I'm really troubled by this attempt to always expand the size of trucks and make them heavier and bigger. It's a bad idea, and I appreciate you being here, and hopefully we'll get through this in one piece, and your delicate compromise stays in place, and people around here don't screw it all up, and we can all support it in a nice, big, bipartisan way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGovern. Dr. Burgess.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. DeFazio, I want to thank you for your observations on the positive trait control, because that troubled me also. Troubled me when we passed it, not knowing how long it would take to develop and implement the technology. I appreciate your comments about some of the difficulties that are encountered with the communications aspect. It's clearly something that is needed, as we saw in Mr. Schuster's state earlier this fall. Goodness knows there are plenty of places where there are trains carrying very volatile chemicals through highly developed and populated areas. So we all want this protection, but I just wanted to say that I was encouraged by your comments about how that is not something that's fallen off the radar screen. We are still focused on it, and it is still the intent to get it up and implemented. And certainly some of the companies are to be commended for doing as much work as they have. I know in the Fort Worth part of the world, Burlington Northern Santa Fe has done a lot towards implementing of that technology. I was a little concerned that the Federal Railroad Association would not really talk to me about other options as we saw this deadline coming toward us. Certainly you don't want to see the situation where the freight rail companies simply have to prohibit passenger rail on their tracks because of the non-compliance with the positive train control, but it is a big deal. And it may have been one of those cases where Congress overestimated the ability of the technology to actually be developed. We've put some regulatory burdens in the way. I'm just gratified to see that you all are working on it in the way that you are, and that we can expect that it will be implemented, if not within the original time frame, within one that's in the foreseeable future. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'll yield back.
Thank you very much, Dr. Burgess. Mr. Hastings.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady. And I thank you, gentlemen, for the extraordinary work and effort that you all have put in. And knowing both of you, I know personally that all of your efforts have been toward trying to achieve a bipartisan agreement, and that's particularly appreciative. I want to say something that I want to make it very clear that I only speak for myself. And when Secretary Fox had been appointed as Transportation Secretary, within the month, he came to Florida to review some of our projects that were ongoing. And 3 other congresspersons were present, and their names will remain unmentioned. But the whole room, the air went out of the room when I said that I favor a gasoline tax to ensure added funding for the Highway Trust Fund. No, I favor that as well, and I think outgoing our former speaker made that clear the other day, that it was something that we wished that we could restore. At least he put it a different way. He said he did it, and then he said he was sorry. And I think most of us in this room recognize the importance of members having input. So I agree with you, Jim. I also agree with the other statements that you have made about opening this process up and causing it to cause problems. Toward that end, I just want to be on record here at this point in my life as saying what I just heard Mr. DeFazio say, and that is that the American people get it. And if we had to index or do whatever was necessary in order to ensure solvency and continuation of the Highway Trust Fund, I don't think there would be a problem at all. I do want to lift from an article that I read, just 2 paragraphs where one part of it is asserting that by a woman named Patricia Dorsch, who is off counsel with Squire Patton Boggs, she told Law 360 that we're beyond checking the couch cushions. Just about every potential funding option that Congress can explore has been explored, and the House is going to have to see which is more palatable. Someone gave kudos to the Senate for some creativity for their measures, indexing certain custom user fees, as well as extending Transportation Security Administration airport fees to cover $3.5 billion. The other measure was for $4 billion. I predict they're going to have problems with that. I hope you all can iron it out at conference. We relied, a lot of us, in earlier discussions on the American Society of Civil Engineers. And toward that effort, Madam Chair, I would like to offer on behalf of them, and they say on behalf of their 150,000 members, they urge us to vote for this bipartisan measure. And I'd like to introduce the letter that was received by the American Society for Civil Engineers.
Without objection.
Additionally, coming from a state where we have a lot of ports, and many members in here do as well, I would like to ask unanimous consent to include a letter from the Florida Ports Council that is basically supportive, but believes that there is some unnecessary port performance language to this measure. I'd like to ask unanimous consent, Madam Chair.
Without objection.
That's all I have, and I thank you both very much, and I hope we have success going forward. The nation needs it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hastings. Mr. Stivers, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the chairman for all his work on this bill. Thank you, the ranking member, for all his work as well. It's great to have a multi-year bill. It's not a perfect bill, but it's a good bill, and it's a bill I'm glad that, I know you guys don't agree on everything in it, but I know you both worked well together to get something that I think will be great for America, and I know we've got a lot of amendments to sort through, so we got a lot of work to do here in this committee yet, too. But I wanted to thank you both for your incredible work on behalf of the American people who want to drive to work, who need to get their goods and services from wherever they're produced to wherever they live, and so they can buy them and live their lives. And we need a transportation bill to do that. And I want to thank you for all your hard work. I know it wasn't easy. I think the House provisions are much better than the Senate bill we were given on policy. And I'm glad that we worked through it and got that, and I hope we can move forward. But thank you both for all your hard work. I yield back.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stivers. Mr. Collins? No? Mr. Newhouse?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to say something, join my colleagues' comments on congratulating you on getting a good bill forward. Didn't want to let the gentleman from the Northwest go unscathed without a question, so, as well as the gentleman from Pennsylvania. I did want to say, though, I'm feeling quite good sitting here on the end of the dais. Some good person put a strip of wood right here. So I won't be rolling off the edge anymore. I feel much more confident. It's all good. If anybody wants to
I
trade chairs.
thought that was new. I started to ask somebody a few minutes ago if that was new. Good for you.
It wasn't me, but it's a good idea. As you can tell, everybody's interested in transportation. Is one of those subjects around here that I think every American has an interest in because we use all the time. Our interstate system is, what, over 60 years old now. Even in the West, it's showing signs of age. And so certainly we need to keep up with maintenance. You know, capacity issues grow, safety issues, access issues, lots of different things so I appreciate you bringing a bill forward. I just had a question. You know, as a freshman and not being on the committee, my understanding was that we were always strapped for cash in the transportation fund. This, though, is good for 3 years at least, and could have some changes that would make it go longer term. But could you help shed a little light for me on how we get there to at least we have a fund that's strong for 3 years?
Well, I would say we're still strapped for cash. As somebody mentioned, an article that, you know, they looked at every nook and cranny to find what these pay for to get us to 3 years of funding. So, as I mentioned earlier, going through the process of figuring out how to do repatriation and other tax provisions that may bring more dollars into the system. But I think at the end of the day, when this bill gets passed, I believe it will and gets signed by the president, we in Congress have to work together with the stakeholders to come up with a solution. My colleague from Oregon mentioned there were 8 red states out there that did raise their gas, changed the way they do it. They came up with it, but they had to sell it to the people of my state of Pennsylvania did something different, similar to what Mr. DeFazio has proposed. Virginia did something different. Wyoming just purely raised the gas. But they went out and they sold the people on why we should trust the state government to get more dollars. And we have to do that because the trust factor with the federal government is lower than it's probably ever been. So we've got to come up working with the stakeholders and say, this is the solution. And the truckers and the manufacturers and the road builders and the unions all say, that's the solution. Let's go out and educate the American people, explain it to the American people, and then come back here and say, let's pass this. And I think Peter's right. American people are starting to get it. They're getting it in their states, but I still don't believe they trust the federal government. And we haven't come up with a solution that Mr. DeFazio and I, both sides of the aisle, and all across the stakeholder community can agree with. So that's where we really have to go. Let's get this bill finished up and let's start talking about that. Because Pennsylvania took them 3 years to come up with that sort of solution and sell it to the people of Pennsylvania and then the legislature. So that's where we have to work, I believe, after this bill.
In response to the gentleman, there were 2 reports that they could use updating, but they were comprehensive commissions under the Bush administration. One looked specifically at revenues, the other looked comprehensively at the system. And both reports are generally amplified every year by the report of the American Society for Civil Engineers. But the point is, the system is degrading more quickly than we're maintaining it. Simply to bring the existing system, transit, highways, bridges, up to a state of good repair would require you know, a massive investment over 10 years, just to bring it up to, and that's not to build in new capacity. And those commissions look comprehensively at any and every potential form of revenue, mostly relating into user fees, since that had been the tradition. We haven't raised the gas tax since '93. In '93, you paid $1.29 a gallon for gas, and you paid 18.3 cents to the federal government. Pretty heavy hit. You know, last spring we were paying $4 a gallon, paying 18.3 cents to the federal government. If it had been a percentage tax or if it had been indexed, we wouldn't be in this kind of predicament we're in. So we have been backfilling this, you know, people are driving more miles, more efficient vehicles, revenues are not obviously increasing, and the gas tax hasn't been increased, so we've been backfilling with other general fund dollars, and what's being proposed here is basically the current levels of spending plus inflation for the term of the bill, which, again, will not bring the system up to a state of good repair. It'll just help us be able to deal with some of the worst problems and do, you know, as states up, since states have great discretion, some may choose to use that money for major new projects. With a 6-year bill, they can at least plan on the dependability of the funds flowing to them. So it's still a looming issue.
Okay, I appreciate that. And so we still have some very difficult decisions ahead of us.
Yep.
It's going to take a lot of work. So, okay, I appreciate that. Helps my understanding a lot. And I also share some of my what some of my colleagues are comments on the positive train control. I appreciate your work there, and I think safety is the #1 priority there, and I think we're on the right track. I would also ask. I haven't looked at all the amendments, obviously. There's a lot of them in front of us, but the subject of truck weights has come up a couple times, and like I said, I don't know the specifics of that, but I don't need to get into a debate necessarily here, but I just wanted to ask people to keep an open mind on that issue. There certainly are some issues with safety that we have to be cognizant of, but whenever you talk about weight, as far as I know, you talk about extra axles, extra tires, extra braking capacity, so there's aspects of this that I would just ask everybody to keep an open mind to all the amendments that are being offered. And it's a huge subject, and like I said, everybody has an interest in all of these things for a lot of different reasons. But with that,
Will the gentleman yield?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I would just point out, and I'm trying to keep it, I've obviously made my decision, you've made your decision. I've been persuaded by the victims of truck crashes and by the drivers of the trucks, but we did ask the Department of Transportation to do a study. I mean, we ought to do this in a way that where the experts, not the politicians or not the special interests, make the decision. And they have said that they do not recommend that we go beyond where we are right now because the data is incomplete. We ought to let them do the study before we start legislating because we think we're responding to a particular special interest. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and I appreciate that, Mr. McGovern. And all I'm saying is I haven't made up my mind yet, and interesting that you already have. But
I'll get you some information.
But I do think that we all need to approach this with an open mind and weigh all the factors before making a decision. That was my statement. And again, I appreciate the input from everybody. And so again, thank you, Madam Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Polis, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to, really, this bill is important to all of us, getting transportation right, and the biggest concern from my district that I know affects many other districts across the country relates to trains in downtown areas and busy areas, and it's one that I have an amendment on under my name and one that Mr. Duffy, that I'm the co-sponsor of. And fundamentally, they address two different issues that we face in the urban interface with trains, and one of them is train noise. And right now, under the rules that currently exist for close to a decade, as I'm sure the chair and ranking member know, the sound level of the locomotive horn is really the same, whether it's in a rural crossing where the train is going 70 miles an hour and cars are going 65, and the decibel level in that scenario does not concern us. In an urban setting, in our downtowns in Fort Collins and Longmont and Loveland in my district, the trains are usually going 15 or 20 miles an hour, cars are going the same speed, and we hope that we can give more discretion to the train conductor with regard to the decibel level in our downtown areas. It's the #1 issue I hear about from our downtown merchants and the business community. I haven't seen any studies that show that it's any safer in those areas. I know there's aggregate studies that certainly in less trafficked areas it could be safer. But what we feel is that there's got to be a way to address this issue so our downtowns don't lose business. And I want to give both the chair and the ranking member a chance to address that issue.
Well, I certainly have heard those concerns. When you look at the deaths that occur when it comes to trains occurring on train tracks, 98% are people that are breaking the law, are going around crossings, are trespassing. So 98%. So even a loud horn doesn't stop people from doing that. I mean, I don't. So I'm a little concerned about, can we dial it back some? I don't know the technology. I'm sure there's some way, but it just seems to me that if you've got 98% of the people doing stupid things, and we're, it's like my kids, the louder I used to yell at them, at least sometimes it got their attention that they would stop. So again, something I know that's out there, it's a concern, but I think we've got to just continue to talk about safety and the aspect of people doing stupid things and breaking the law it's a difficult thing to overcome.
Yeah, and at a certain level, people just need to be responsible, right? And it's their own responsibility. I mean, if a train is coming at 20 miles an hour and horns are blaring and lights are flashing, you ought to be able to get out of the way of that. I mean, if somebody is fooling around and standing in the tracks at the last minute and gets hit, that's a tragedy, but it's not one that any law can prevent. And so education is certainly part of this about risk, perhaps warning signs, but we don't want to take these measures that have the unintended consequence of costing our downtown's business and quality of life, as well as nearby residents. There's an enormous differential, even, for instance, in the price of homes near where there's a crossing and even 20 blocks away where it's a lot quieter, simply because people are being woken up at all times because of that. So I'm hopeful that my Amendment 173 can be made in order. I'm also working with Mr. Duffy on an amendment around putting some parameters around stoppages in busy intersections. And as you know, we all, of course, those of us who live in communities with rail, we love having rail. That's part of our community. But they're not going to do anything that we don't make sure that they do. I mean, they have a different agenda. It's a fine agenda. They want to be profitable companies. They want to be decent neighbors. But if we want to make sure they're not blocking our major traffic arteries, we're going to need to do more around that as well. And I want to see if the ranking member would like to address either of those two issues as well.
Well, you know, I've served on the committee, and I think the chairman did too, at the time when we gave the discretion for quiet zones, which didn't previously exist. But the problem, as you observed, is, or the chairman observed, is you have people who, I mean, if you just have two gates, well, they'll try and go around that. So you have to have two double gates. It becomes very expensive for communities to implement these zones where the horns won't be sounded. No one, to tell the truth, has ever raised the decibel issue with me before. It makes, seems to make a lot of sense to me. I would have to consult with the chairman. I'd have to look for some more facts if that amendment is made in order. There's also new technologies that can direct sound, and obviously you don't need to be projecting the sound 360. You only need to be projecting, you know, like this in front of the train. So that may be another solution to cut down on some of the problems, and so maybe a mandate that they have to move toward directional horns or something could also help. But I'm sympathetic and interested in that.
Looking forward to working with you both on that, and you know, I think recognizing the difference of crossings between a crossing in which both trains and cars are going 60, 70 miles an hour versus one where the train might be going 20 and cars are only going 25. Just there's a different need to get how far the sound has to go out to give people sufficient warning. And happy to yield back to the chair.
Thank you very much. Gentleman yields back his time. Is there any other member that seeks time? Any other member that seeks time with this panel? I want to thank both of you for being here. I think we're less inquisitive and more into a lot of good answers. And I think both of you have entertained for a long, long period of time ideas that can help our transportation, surface transportation, other issues get better. But I really want to thank Mr. Cole for him bringing up the issues of tribal issues and rural issues. Tribal and rural issues are of a primary importance, not just to me, but a number of members here. And then you deal with guys men and women that come from large urban and suburban areas that were really inundated with not only old bridges, roads, problems, but also places like North Texas that have grown by some 2.5 million people over the last few years, where we have so many people. Congestion and pollution becomes a problem, and inefficiency. And I know both of you deal with these issues. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you in particular for your hard work, your staff's hard work on issues and thoughts that I've had about just your wide-ranging jurisdictional elements of how we dealt with things in Highland Park, Texas. And I want to thank you for sticking with us to try and let us find our own answer. And then, of course, you agreeing with that. So I want to thank you very, very much. We'll let you guys go ahead and leave. Thank you very much. Did you leave something for our awesome stenographer, please? Anything you had in writing please make sure you do that. Okay, we are now going to tell the committee that we are not prepared to report out a rule at this point, but we will be in just a few minutes. So we'll, for once, try and beat the votes and get out of here and come back immediately at the end of our votes. We'll report out the rule, then be done. So subject to the call of the chair, which I anticipate will be immediately after the last votes. I believe we have 9 votes on the floor. We'll come right back up here and finish our work. Is that right, 9? I think we have 9 suspension votes, but at the end of that, we'll come right back up here. So, oh, everybody thinks there's 1 vote, so they must have agreed to things then. Well,
There were 9 suspensions.
there were 9 suspensions that were offered, so just 9 to 1. Okay, well, we've done our job, so we'll be up here sooner than later. So at the,
Still think you'll be ready?
I still think we're going to be in, so we'll message everybody real quickly. Good, thank you very much. I'm going to give this, you don't have to come get it, I'll come bring it to you.
Florida, so it's very important.
Rules Committee will come to order, and the chairman will be in receipt of a motion from the gentleman from Oklahoma.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee grant a rule providing for the consideration of Senate amendments to H.R. 22, the Hire More Heroes Act of 2015. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the Senate amendment. The rule provides that the amendment printed in Part A of the Rules Committee report shall be considered as adopted. Section 2 of the rule provides that an amendment consisting of the text of Rules Committee print 114-32 shall be in order, shall be considered as pending, shall be considered as read, shall not be debatable, shall not be subject to amendment, except for the amendments printed in Part B of the Rules Committee report, and shall not be subject for a demand for division of the question. The rule makes an order only the further amendments printed in Part B of the Rules Committee report. Each such amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to an amendment, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question. The rule waives all points of order against the amendment consisting of the text of the Rules Committee print 114-32, the amendments printed in the Rules Committee report. Section 3 of the rule provides that a conclusion of consideration of the amendments printed in the Rules Committee report, no further consideration of the bill shall occur except pursuant to a subsequent order of the House. Section 4 of the rule provides that on any legislative day during the period from November 6, 2015 through November 13, 2015, the journal and of the proceedings of the previous day shall be considered as approved, and the chair may at any time declare the House adjourned to meet at a date and time to be announced by the chair in declaring the adjournment. Section 5 of the rule provides that the Speaker may appoint members to perform the duties of the chair for the duration of the period addressed in Section 4. Finally, Section 6 of the rule provides that it shall be in order at any time on the legislative day of November 5, 2015, for the Speaker to entertain motions that the House suspend the rules relating to a measure authorizing appropriations for fiscal year 2016 for the Department of Defense.
I thank the gentleman for his motion. I would now defer, if I can, to the gentleman from Georgia, the member of the committee who can explain really what we're doing and why we're doing. And the gentleman, Mr. Woodall, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll begin where Mr. Cole ended, which is the suspension authority for NDAA to the degree we can find an agreement to take care of our troops. So this rule will allow that to come under suspension of the rules on Thursday. 29 amendments made in order, a lot of amendments by any standard, but just the beginning of those, as I know we'll meet again to discuss more, and provides all the standard recess authorities that you see when we head home for district court period. I hope all members will be able to support it.
Good, thank you very much. Really, the emphasis here, I think, is on what Chairman Schuster and Ranking Member DeFazio brought to the committee today. An opportunity to, if we could think about getting that piece done, those amendments, though not in total related to that, so that we can get it started, so that we can separate it. A good bit of the things that are in here by any standard of evaluation, you probably better know what you're talking about as you look at the detail behind these, not only federal rules and regulations, but really the impact of how they impact the policy. And we're trying to do this in bite sizes. Maybe that works this time. Some of my members, friends in the press, I talked about being able to bite size this with first the Schuster, DeFazio, them working together, coming up here working together, and to get us started. And I thank the gentleman. Now, yes, sir, I would.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I heard from our colleague, my friend, Mr. Woodall, that this was a start, and I hear from you a beginning. But could the chair confirm for me, which I believe is the case, that an amendment submitted to the Rules Committee but not made in order in tonight's resolution will still have every opportunity to be considered here tomorrow, and that our colleagues with amendments should not be concerned if they don't see their amendment on this list of 29 here this evening.
Judge Hastings, you've asked a really good question, and you're entitled to a straight-out answer, and I want to be as straight as I can.
Yes, sir.
You're correct. All of the amendments therein would still be available. Now, with that said, we're trying to look at, for the most part, of separating what might be the Chairman Schuster bill from the rest of the bill, meaning that we have Senate provisions, Senate pay-fors, and I can go through that, but you and I both know we're not going to probably make things in order that are of that nature, but would be the Schuster side, and not all of them have been made in them.
I understand. One additional request.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, and that's to ask unanimous consent to include the statement of administration policy, and I won't bother the committee with reflecting on any of it.
Thank you very much. Without objection, that'll be entered the record. Do I have a copy of that somewhere in my stack? Have I?
The administration. There you go, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
I do? Was that here, or did you put it here? Okay, put it there, okay. Do the other members of the committee have a copy of this? Okay, I'd like to, hold on just a moment, please, and we'd like to go and get these Xerox. If we're gonna submit the record, I'd like every member, just a chance if they would choose to be able to see this, and while we don't need to go over it. That generally is consistent with the president's behavior. I've got my copy, let's make sure. Yes, thank you. Great, okay, thank you very much. Okay, you've now heard the motion from the gentleman
Mr.
from,
Chairman,
excuse me.
could I also ask unanimous consent to include the statement of the chairman of the Select Revenues Subcommittee on Ways and Means that speaks to the need for the amendment that he has submitted that we are.
Without objection, is there any discussion that you would choose to have with that?
There's not, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. You've now heard the motion from the gentleman from Oklahoma, our dear friend Tom Cole. And committee has now answered some questions. Is there further discussion or amendment? Seeing none, the vote now will be on the Cole motion, the motion from the gentleman. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, the ayes have it. And accordingly, the gentleman, Mr. Woodall, will be handling this rule, H.R. 22 Highways, Rule Number 1. The Rules Committee will meet tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. to take up additional testimony and report a final rule for the highway package. I would like to encourage members who are watching this to know that we have literally hundreds of amendments. We're going through a process that we think is attempting to be as open a process, thoughtful a process. We are working with the committee on that.
Mr. McGovern will manage for the minority.
And Mr. McGovern will be managing this for the Democrats. So that's what we're attempting to do. We'll be back at 3:00 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, and we've now done our work for the day. I want to thank everybody for their conscientious behavior of us getting through this today, and we're now finished with our work for the day.